In 1982, I joined the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, restoring standard World War II Jeeps. And how I was introduced to them was a group of those people collected only Bantam Jeeps. Now, what was interesting is they collected all three prototypes. There's the BRC, the Ford GP, and the Willys MA. So that was kind of the goal of that group, was to collect one of each. But I was always drawn to the Bantam, and they were too, to the Bantam BRC, because it was the original and because every test has shown it was the best. So anyway, that group, I joined the Military Vehicle Collectors Club. An interesting story is in about 1985 or 86, I bought one from a fellow in Michigan that owned a nursing home. I sent him the cashier's check. We agreed to a price, and 3 days later I got the cashier's check back because he found out that it was worth appreciably more. He had other people, he had advertised it and checked around at that point and found out that it was worth, even at that time, more than I had paid. So, and he sent me my check back and sold it. It's probably somewhere restored now, but wasn't restored by me. I found another one approximately 15 years later, December of 2000. There was a website that came online. Now it's very large and very active. It's called G503, and it had just started in November of 2000. And in December of 2000, a gentleman advertised. He didn't even advertise, it wasn't his BRC. He said the exact post was, there is a fellow in Missouri that thinks he has a Bantam Jeep, and he put "ha" at the end of the little thread, at the title of the thread. So I thought, well, at least it's worth checking out. So I contacted I saw the name of the business. It was in Jackson, Missouri. It was a towing service in a garage, and I called I Googled it. Google was in its infancy then, of course, and I've got the phone number, and I called the fellow, and I said, do you have a Bantam Jeep? And he said, yes. And I said, do you think it's a Bantam, or it could be just a regular Jeep? He goes, let me read you the data plate off of it. And when he got to, he read the data plate, and of course immediately I knew that was the real thing. So I asked him, that was on a Thursday, I said, I could FedEx you the check. I said, but consider it sold. I said, I can FedEx you the check, but I can be there Saturday morning. So he said, okay, well, just bring the cashier's check with you. He said, and that way you can leave with the car. And he said, in fact, where are you at? And he was in Jackson, Missouri, near Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And he said, I said, I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. He said, well, you don't need a trailer. You can drive it back to Memphis if you want. He said, it runs great. I said, well, I'm going to pull it on a trailer. So you can imagine what happened on Friday night. We had the largest snowstorm we had in like 10 years. So that didn't matter. My son was at the time 12, or no, he was about 18 at that time. And he said he wanted to go with me. So in a driving snowstorm, we drove the 200 miles up to Jackson, Missouri, and got there. And what we didn't realize is, at the towing service, the busiest time of the year for the towing service is during a snowstorm. So we sat there for about an hour and a half, and finally he showed up, and we went inside, and it had a hard cab on it. It was in original condition. It was perfect condition, except it didn't have the air cleaner, which was in the floorboard of it. The original air cleaner, the original engine crank was in the floorboard of the back seat. And before I even looked up, my son said, we'll take it. Can I pull it on the trailer? And I laughed. I said, okay. He said, okay. He said, I'll pull it on the trailer for you. My son said, no, I can get it up on the trailer, and we did. So we took it home in a driving snowstorm. It had to have been 6 inches of snow down the interstate down to Memphis. So we got it down there. When I say it was original, for it to have the little detail parts, it's going to take someone quite a bit of time to find all the little detail parts and to restore it. There's even arguments over which left the factory with, as I'm sure you're aware. But that was the BRC that we have now. The state of that is it's supposed to be through. It's being restored by a fellow that's doing 3 of them at one time. It will probably, he estimates 6 weeks to 8 weeks. It'll be completely through. It's the right color. Now we're just doing the detail work and the fine electrical work to make sure the gauges work and all that. So that was 13.5 years, and it's come a long way in 13.5 years. I will say it's the slowest restoration I've ever done, 13.5 years. But when we finish it, will probably be 40% original as it left the factory, 40%. Of course, the drivetrain will be completely original because the drivetrain doesn't really apply to any other vehicle.
So
it is the vehicle of choice to own because of the rarity and because of the camaraderie of the people that own that. The vehicle itself is, they usually have one at almost every show that they have, and it's the crowd pleaser. It was the first, and they're very unique. You know, if you have a Willys Jeep, you have one of 750,000 World War II Jeeps, or a Ford GPW. But if you've got the Bantam Jeep, you know, it's interesting when you look at a BRC Jeep, you look at the dash, the first thing you see is this beautiful speedometer, oval and white, cream colored, and then over here you have your instrument cluster. Well, they're the same as on the cars, except for one little variation in the instrument cluster. There's 4 holes instead of 3 for the little gauges, but that's the only difference. And it's, you know, Willys Jeep, it's not that way. On the MA, it's not that way. You know, it's just none of the parts are the same as the car, very few. But I think that makes it unique. What that shows is that they had to come up with something fast, and that was and it worked very well. You know, what is a Jeep? To me, what is a Jeep is the size. It's the quarter ton. They had command cars. They had 3/4 ton command cars, they had 1/2 ton command cars, but they were too big. They were just too big. About 2 weeks ago I bought a film that showed all the prototype vehicles being driven through a mud field. And this guy found it out here in California and made a few copies. All of them stick except for one size in the mud, the 1/4 ton. We needed something that was small enough to, 6 people can get in a Jeep, believe it or not, I believe. I mean, if you get them, I've seen pictures of them, if they hang on, they can get 6 in there. But the Jeepness is the size, it's the weight, it's the 4-wheel drive wasn't unique. It was done as early as, World War I. They had 4-wheel drive vehicles. But they were all huge, and you can't, that limits your mobility quite a bit when you're that big. So, and I just laughed when I saw the film. These big, you know, the ducks, the big giant amphibious vehicles go right in the mud and dead stop. The next one's a 3/4 ton command car, personnel carrier. They all go right in the mud and they just, you know, it's a big splat. But the little Jeep, because of its size, that's the key to it. The 1/4 ton and that very small size, they would go right through the mud and just keep going, and that's what they were looking for, and that's what the Army was looking for and couldn't come up with. And I'm sure the story has been told many times, but they offered the contract they put it out for bid for many companies, and on the day that it counted, the day that they said we have to have something, proof that you did the engineering and that you have something that will come up with fit in this category, one company showed up that day. One company, and that was American Bantam Car Company of Butler, Pennsylvania. One company.